There's a city where the ground breathes. Not in a poetic sense, not metaphorically. On the hottest days of summer, when the sun presses down and the concrete begins to soften, you can actually watch the asphalt rise and fall, like a lung struggling for air. Most people here don't notice it. Or maybe they've just learned not to look too closely. But once you know what's beneath the surface, it's impossible to unsee. Because under these streets, under the apartment blocks and playgrounds and the new shopping mall with the glass elevators, there is a river, a dead river. A river filled with chemicals so toxic that the government once classified them as unmanageable. But instead of cleaning it, they buried it, and hoped everyone would forget. I first heard about this place from a young engineer named Layla, 27 years old, soft-spoken, the kind of person who apologizes before she disagrees with you. She had been working for the city for barely a year when she noticed something strange. Buildings along the old industrial district were shifting, just slightly. A millimeter here, a crack there. At first, she thought it was soil settling, completely normal. But then she noticed the pattern. Every distortion lined up perfectly, along a curved path that didn't appear on any modern map. So she started digging. Not literally, at least not at first. She dug through archives, basement filing cabinets, scanned records buried behind decades of budget reports. And that's when she found it, a blueprint from 1968, stamped confidential, showing a massive canal running through what is now the heart of the city. A canal that had been quietly sealed under meters of earth and concrete. The file mentioned volatile residues. There was no mention of what those residues were. When she brought this to her supervisor, he told her it was an old rumor, an exaggeration, urban legend, he said. Best not to chase ghosts. But ghosts have a way of haunting the people who don't deserve it. Around the same time, residents in a newly built housing complex started reporting headaches, then nosebleeds, then a series of miscarriages, all in the same 3-block radius. A mother told me she woke up one morning to find a strange oily sheen covering the puddle in her basement. She called the city, and they sent someone to pump it out. But they never told her what it was. Another resident, a retired dock worker, said the smell reminded him of the factories that used to dominate the waterfront half a century ago. He remembers workers dumping barrels into the canal late at night, long after environmental laws were supposedly in place. When Leela tried to access the environmental records from that era, she found that half of them were missing, and the other half had entire pages blacked out. Still, she pushed forward. She took independent soil and air samples near the distortion line. The lab called her the next morning and asked if the samples came from a chemical plant. They showed levels of benzene, a known carcinogen nearly 50 times the recommended maximum. And yet, people lived just meters above. When she presented her findings to the city council, they thanked her, and then quietly reassigned her to a different department. Her report never appeared in the meeting minutes. That should have been the end of it. But the truth doesn't like being buried, especially not under something as fragile as concrete. A month later, after heavy rain, a sinkhole opened near the railway tracks. At first, people thought it was just erosion, until firefighters saw what was inside, a black, viscous sludge, thick as tar, stinking of gasoline and something metallic and sweet, the unmistakable smell of industrial chemicals. The buried river had resurfaced. Scientists later confirmed what Leela feared. The canal had become a pressurized conduit of toxic waste, and decades of construction above it had fractured the concrete seal. Every rainy season, toxins seeped upward. Every summer, heat expanded the trapped gases, and every day, people breathed the air above it. The city couldn't deny it anymore. The story made national news. Politicians blamed their predecessors. Developers blamed outdated regulations. Corporations blamed historical practices. But no one blamed the families who lived there. No one blamed the engineer who risked her career to sound the alarm. No one blamed the children who played on contaminated soil because that's where their school was built. Cleanup will take decades. Some neighborhoods may never be safe again. But there's something haunting about places like this. Because this isn't just one city's story. There are dozens of buried rivers around the world, paved over in the name of progress. Thousands of forgotten industrial sites. Millions of people living on land with a past no one wants to talk about. We like to think history stays behind us, that we can cover it up with a layer of concrete and move forward. But the ground remembers. Chemicals remember. Cities remember. And sometimes, on the hottest days of summer, you can watch the truth rise to the surface, trying to breathe.
Case closed on this chapter, but the world is full of unsolved questions. Join the investigation by subscribing now.